Wonderful. Okay. I think we are all ready to begin. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We do this annually in person. So we are as sorry as you probably are that we are doing this remotely for the very first time, but we are going to try and make it as smooth and as intimate as we possibly can. This is something that we enjoy doing. There has been such a long time where there were never as many conference members in the Senate representing Westchester. So we would usually do this, frankly, with the Assembly. But now we have grown, as you can see, and I'm going to give each of my members an opportunity to say hello, and in one case, at least introduce himself. But we are so large representing Westchester County that we have our very own budget forum so that we listen directly to you. And also understand that we're talking about the governor's proposed budget. It's approximately $192 billion. And the decisions that we make are going to be based very much on obviously the needs of our state. And we can imagine, and I know you all know, certainly during this COVID crisis, the level of the needs are great. And that's why we're listening to you. And then, of course, we talk with our Assembly members. We try to come to agreements, and we present one House bills. Each House presents their version of what the budget should look like. But a lot of that is based on the input that we get from you today. And then the negotiation happens between the governor and the two houses in order to get us, on a path where we could continue to make New York as strong as it possibly can be. So this is our opportunity not to talk to you, not to talk back at you. It is to listen to you. And it is a 3-hour forum. So people, the senators will be jumping on and off as our lives require us to, especially in the Zoom environment, do more than one thing. So, but rest assured that even though we might not be visible to you, our staff is all over listening, taking notes, and just making sure that we get what you want us to get out of this. So don't be alarmed that we're not talking back to you, that you're not seeing us. We're listening to you. So that's our part. Your part is you got 2 minutes. So everything you want to say should be said in 2 minutes. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't say more. Again, we will make sure that you have access to our staffs, to our emails. They'll put it in the chat. So, so if you got more to say, you could send your documentation and whatever it is so that we can have the full picture. But for the sake of all of us, everybody needs to adhere to the 2-minute time limit. You see Laura, who is actually labeled timekeeper. And so she will be the person who's responsible for holding up and telling you you're down to your next 30 seconds or 10 seconds. And then there's another unseen and there it goes, that's the sample. And then there's another unseen and very important hand, which is the Emiliana. Emiliana will have the difficult task of saying goodbye to you should you not know when to say goodbye yourself. So sadly or gladly, in this muted ability, you will not be able to extend long after your 2-minute time. We don't want to be rude, but we do have 40 speakers today. And so we want to make sure that every single body has an opportunity to be heard, and hopefully you will adhere and help us to get through this. So I am going to introduce my colleagues who are with us today. We will be joined shortly by Senator Jamaal Bailey, who is on another forum. As soon as he comes in, he will speak. But let me first introduce you, allow him to introduce himself, Senator Pete Harckham. Senator Harckham, you're on.
Thank you very much, Madam Leader. And thank you for your leadership during this very, very challenging year. It's been extraordinary. And your ability to forge consensus from so many divergent views is really the skill set we need right now. So thank you, and thank you for arranging this. Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you. For those of you who don't know me, I represent pretty much all of northern Westchester. And as my colleagues from Yonkers like to say, I represent Canada, but it is Westchester nonetheless. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say, because this is not the governor's budget. It's not our budget. It's your budget. And that's why your testimony is so important. I share a lot of your concerns. We've heard already that any federal dollars should supplement, not supplant. I have concerns about education, about behavioral health, about our aid to municipalities, and on down the line. And I look forward to hearing from you today how this budget specifically impacts you and your interest groups. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Madam Leader.
Thank you so much, Senator Harckham. I wanted to then pass it on next to Senator Shelley Mayer.
Well, thank you, Madam Leader, my friend, and thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to everyone who's here. Two housekeeping things that I want to make sure. Please make sure the name on your Zoom matches the name in the confirmation email you received. And also, if you do not respond when your name is called, you forfeit your opportunity. We have more people sign up than we have opportunity to hear, and we have a second hearing coming on the 16th. So with that said, I want to say that we all know, those of us on this call, what a tough year this has been and what a tough budget situation we are presented with. As advocates, you have done an extraordinary job of making your voices heard. And I think we have much to be proud of for being there to listen and to try to respond under the leadership of our leader. We are committed to doing our best for our constituents. I think you will hear that is the passion we all bring to this. We want to hear from on the ground what your experience is, what your needs are, and we are committed to doing our best in this difficult situation to get to the end with you. But I want to thank the leader because, as Pete said, we are unified in being committed to equity, in being committed to a properly funded system of education and the other services that the state must provide. But the challenge is to get there, and we look forward to hearing your ideas. Lastly, I want to thank our staffs, Laura and Emiliana, who made this happen. This is not easy to put together with this many people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Mayer. And next, Senator Biaggi, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Leader, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My colleagues have said a lot of what we are going to, I think, probably hear from all of you, and I don't want to repeat that to in futility, but what I do want to say is that myself, and I know that all of my colleagues in government, whether it's Westchester County or any of the other 62 counties across the state, are very much committed to making sure that we take this moment of crisis and really transform it into an opportunity. I think that in the past 2 years serving in the 34th State Senate District, which does cover parts of the Bronx, but of course Westchester, Pelham, and Mount Vernon, one of the things that I have felt very proud of with this majority is that this is government listening. And that is not often what you get when you think about government. You think about government dictating. That is not what this government is. That is not what this majority is. It is a real treat to be able to hear from all of you, whether you're in my district or not, because everything that we do, whether it's individually, as a community, or as a district, affects all of us. And so I am also committed to equity, to making sure that we are rebuilding on a very strong foundation and also fighting very, very hard so that all of the things that we care about, from housing to education to our environment and to the things that we also hope to be able to be leaders on, are able to be funded in a way that make New York State a leader in the rest of the country. So thank you. I'm excited to hear what everybody has to testify about today.
Thank you so much, Senator. And right now, as I said, we'll hear from Senator Bailey when he jumps on, but for many of you, you've not had the opportunity to meet Senator Elijah Reichlin-Melnick, who has taken over where Senator Carlucci was. So Senator, the floor is yours.
Madam Leader, thank you so much. And everybody who's joining us today, thank you for being part of this forum and sharing with us the concerns that you have about this budget. I'm proud to represent, although much of my district is in Rockland, I'm very proud to represent Briarcliff and Ossining in Westchester, and to be part of basically this is the all-star team of state legislative delegations from Westchester, from the leader on down. And it's an honor to be part of this group of colleagues, because I think that what we've got here is folks who understand the needs of the county, understand the needs of the state, but most importantly, all of you who are here to let us know what you need and what your concerns are about this budget process. We've maybe never seen a budget like this with everything going on with COVID, and we've been waiting, and thank goodness we ended up with a new federal government that's able, we hope, to help out states like New York, but it doesn't mean we're not still gonna have tough choices. And so figuring out and listening to all of you is so important to this process. So I'm glad to be here and glad to hear from you this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Senator Reichlin-Melnick, and welcome to the first of, our two budget, as Senator Mayer mentioned, our two budget forums, because, it's a great opportunity to hear from our constituents. So again, I think everybody knows the ground rules. I'd like you to make sure that the name on your Zoom box matches the name you used when you signed up, because if it doesn't match, then we can't find you, and if we can't find you, we are going to move on. So please, again, if you're not speaking, mute your microphone. We will do the same thing here, because we're not going to be talking to you. Just remember, this is not a call and response. You're going to be talking, we're going to be listening. And when I call your name, you're going to be visible to everyone on the Zoom. So please, make sure we're not seeing anything we don't want to see, because we want to pay attention to your testimony, not other things. And with that, I am going to, I believe our first speaker was supposed to be our Westchester County Executive. I do not believe he has joined us as yet, but when he comes, he too will be invited to address us. So since he's not here yet, we will hear from our second speaker, who will be our first, and that's Kathy Hallis. Kathy, you're on.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Kathy Hallis, Executive Director of the Child Care Council. The governor's budget does not cut child care, nor does it contain any new state funding. Child care is the biggest bill in anyone's household. Center-based infant care in Westchester tops $21,000. Yet fewer than 20% of New York's children now eligible for the child care subsidy are getting it. Many Westchester child care businesses have been open throughout the pandemic. Most of them have suffered tremendous financial losses, and they were not financially robust to begin with. Home-based providers in particular have exhausted their savings and gone into great debt. Over my 18 years at the council, I've seen some wonderful changes. In the Democratic presidential primaries, almost every candidate offered a child care plan. The Child Care Development Block Grant has had historic increases, in great part due to retired Congresswoman Nita Lowey. Child care is in the CARES Act and the HEROES Act at levels I could not have imagined a decade ago. And there's clearly more widespread support for child care in Albany, but I have not seen that manifest in a New York State budget, which continues to basically include only that state investment required to draw down federal child care dollars. How New York State deploys the next round of child care stimulus funding, now estimated to be $469 million, is also critical. Last year's CARES child care initiatives were very slow to roll out. The application process was difficult. There were changing start and ending dates, late and contradictory guidance on eligibility and processes, and a delayed reimbursement process. OCFS Commissioner Poole testified yesterday that only 40 million of the 164 million of CARES has been distributed. The next federal child care money is 3 times as much. Think what that could do, but only if it is deployed strategically and promptly. According to the Census Bureau, 1 in 5 adults are not working due to COVID-19 related child care issues. For women, it's 1 in 3. Please fight for more child care funding in the state budget and urge the governor and the budget office to distribute the federal money promptly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Our next speaker is Michael Romita, the Westchester County Association. Unmute, Michael.
Yeah, great. I got kicked off. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So I've submitted some written testimony, and I'll just use my allotted time to summarize here. And I'll talk about 4 areas in particular. The first is workforce development. The governor understands that this is one of the roads back from the pandemic. And in previous budgets, he'd set aside some $175 million for the workforce development initiative. Unfortunately, there have been only $20 million of that money awarded over the last several years, and the rest is being hung up for budget purposes. So I would urge the administration to release the rest of this funding. The WCA actually has something called Pay for Success, and we've applied for some grant money to get some 250 individuals hired into the healthcare field in Westchester, which is a growing sector. Secondly, I want to talk about the regional healthcare industry. Obviously very important to Westchester and Lower Hudson Valley. We support a lot of what's in the budget, particularly an expansion of telehealth and testing and vaccine distribution. However, there are still additional proposed cuts to Medicaid, Medicaid capital payments, and the indigent care pool. There is an industry that is doing quite well through the pandemic. It's certainly not the healthcare industry. It's the for-profit insurance industry. So if we look about ways to fill budget gaps, rather than looking at the healthcare industry, or potentially consumers, or even those who are working in the healthcare field, perhaps we should be looking towards the insurance industry for some help there. Thirdly, I want to talk about digital infrastructure. This has been identified by the Westchester County Office of Economic Development as a critical need in Westchester. Prior to that, the Westchester County Association also identified this, and you can talk to all the nonprofit agencies about why they think this is important. My primary point here is there has been a lot of state money associated with this, but almost all of it's been rural, and very little of it has been focused on suburban communities. So my hope is that if there is money allotted to this, that we don't leave the suburbs out. Very important to rebuilding our community. And I'll end quickly where most of you are probably starting, and that is please continue to vigorously advocate for federal aid to state and local governments. The budget assumes that we're getting $3 billion this year and $3 billion next year, worst case scenario. So we need to start there. So I will keep hitting that issue, but please continue to advocate strongly for that federal aid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. The next speaker, thank you, is Beth Finkel. Beth, you were asked to raise your hand if you're here. I don't know if we found you. We cannot find Ms. Finkel. So we will then go to our next speaker, Terry Kirshner, Westchester Library System. I will tell people we now have a library committee, the first time the Senate has had one, so we're very excited about that. Okay, I see Terry.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name's Terry Kirshner, Executive Director of the Westchester Library System. We're also an organizational member of Nonprofit Westchester and the Westchester Women's Agenda. I want to express my appreciation for your ongoing support of nonprofits, including public libraries, partners in creating a Westchester County and really a New York State where every resident can thrive and achieve their full potential. So this year, the governor's executive budget included another cut for public libraries. 7.6 million overall in library aid was cut in the proposed budget, which is actually on top of another 4.73 million, which was cut in the 2020 budget. While I recognize that there are lots of financial challenges, I do ask you to support the New York Library Association's ask of 123 million for library aid and 45 million for public library construction aid. Libraries have been and will continue to be the important partner in helping communities move through the pandemic and into the better world. It's important that we invest in that future. Now, I've provided lots of examples in my testimony, but I just want to highlight one thing that WLS is doing that may be a little bit different than others. We have partnered with Westchester County to be one of the members of a FEMA grant for COVID crisis counselors. And one of our aims and one of our goals is that the library system will be a central repository for true information about the pandemic and about where individuals can get vaccinations and get signed up for vaccinations, especially those in the target populations where they have limited internet access. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. We appreciate everybody adhering to our timeframes as well. Next, we're going to hear from Carmen Goodstein. Oh, Carmen, give us one moment. I do want to recognize the presence of Senator Jamaal Bailey. Thank you, Senator Bailey, for joining us. Again, we've just begun. If you'd like a moment to say hello, we will give you that. And, you know, thank you for being here.
A brief moment. Thank you, Madam Leader, and thanks to my great colleagues in the Westchester delegation. We are excited to hear your testimony, listen to your ideas, and we really want your input on how we can continue to, in difficult fiscal times, as probably will be the refrain throughout, how we can continue to make sure that Westchester gets all it needs. And we are grateful for Westchester's own and the state's own, our own history maker, and our leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. So thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. Okay, so our next person then is Carmen. I think we found Carmen. Thank you, Carmen, Yonkers Council of PTA.
Hi, sorry, I had to turn on the camera and unmute. Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Goodstein. I am the mother of 2 girls and the president of the Yonkers Council of PTA, which represents 32,000 students here in the city of Yonkers. I spent a week trying to figure out what to say to the budget forum. This is my first time speaking. What moving testimony could I present that would make light bulbs go on and inspire change? Facts like a current $50 million deficit, not enough mental health support to our children, children being deprived of arts and music have all been said, and yet the Yonkers Public School continues to advocate for change because change has yet to happen. The pandemic has highlighted just how much our kids are lacking and how inequitable the conditions are for our Yonkers children. Despite 73% of its population at an economic disadvantage, the Yonkers Schools District is viewed as complainers or whiners, never mind the fact that the foundation aid formula is flawed and has not been fully funded as intended, and never mind that during the most difficult time of our children's lives, Yonkers is facing a greater deficit than it has had before. We live in one of the greatest states in the nation. New York has always been a progressive state, one that advocates for equality and inclusiveness, yet we know in reality our Yonkers children are not afforded literally the same education funding opportunities. Despite this government can't seem to understand that while it demands equality and inclusiveness, its own foundation aid formula lacks these qualities. One critical flaw of the foundation aid formula, which was passed in 2007, is that the formula is based on the regional cost index, and we're located in Westchester, which is a wealthy county. Because of this formula, our children have suffered and gone without essential programs for the last 14 years, and we're going to suffer even more this year. To quote Nelson Mandela, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. I ask you, and how will you, our elected officials, support in changing how we treat our Yonkers children? You need to provide change to the formula or solutions that are more permanent to clear, to take care of the inequities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Goodstein. Next, we were going to hear from LaTanya Russell-Humith from the Boys and Girls Club of New Rochelle. There she is. Hi there.
Hi. Thank you to the delegation for taking my comments. I'm a member of the Westchester Children's Association's Board of Directors and the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of New Rochelle, as well as a resident of Ossining. Young people in Westchester have experienced complete disruption to their daily lives since March 2020. School closures, remote learning that is only as effective as their parents' income and circumstances, heightened food and shelter insecurity, and emotional distress. While many of our government institutions were also disrupted and unable to respond to the needs of youth and families, it was the nonprofit sector that aided with food, shelter, support, educational support, as well as emotional support. I understand the constraints of the state's budget. However, I ask that we not balance the budget on the backs of our most vulnerable. The Westchester Children's Association will be providing a more detailed testimony in writing, but I specifically ask that we restore $5 million to Advantage After School so that we can continue to provide academic and social, emotional support to young people whose families have suffered losses due to COVID, unemployment and underemployment, and eviction as they try to pick up the pieces and move forward, that this is the right thing to do. That we fully fund Raise the Age to support the continuum of services and expansion of family court to accommodate the higher demand. Pass solutions, not suspensions legislation. Pass the Child Poverty Reduction Act. Maintain the evidence-based home visiting funding, and ensure that every child has access to high-speed broadband to support remote learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, LaTanya. Next, we're going to hear from Theo Oshiro, Make the Road, New York. Theo? Is Theo in the house? Ah, there he is.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so
Hi.
much for this opportunity. My name is Theo Oshiro. I'm Deputy Director and incoming Co-Executive Director at Make the Road New York. Make the Road New York builds the power of immigrant and working class communities to achieve dignity and justice through services, policy innovation, transformative education, and community organizing. We work across the state with a base of members, including in Westchester County, and I myself reside in Croton-on-Hudson. Beautiful place. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. The communities we represent have been utterly devastated by COVID-19, with staggering loss of life and calamitous economic consequences. I am testifying today in support of a recovery for all to be included in this year's budget that includes, but is not limited to, funding excluded workers, COVID-19 housing relief, and raising the revenue that our schools and communities need through the Invest in Our New York revenue package. Hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers that are ineligible for unemployment benefits and all-income replacement assistance, largely due to their immigration status or recent incarceration, have now gone 10 months without any support and cannot wait any longer. The Fund for Excluded Workers, Bill S-4543, that was introduced by Senator Ramos, would deliver long overdue relief. The COVID-19 Housing Relief and Recovery for All Bill, S-4050, introduced by Senator Salazar, would clear all back rent accrued during the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic and creates a landlord hardship fund, as well as directs HCR to ensure that the fund prioritizes landlords who need aid the most. The stories of the members we serve in our communities are not unique. 597,000 undocumented New Yorkers are shut out of unemployment benefits, even though they pay taxes into the system. Nearly 20,000 recently incarcerated New Yorkers released before or during the pandemic are struggling to find stable employment, are ineligible as well, since you need work history to qualify for unemployment. People who work for cash, street vendors, domestic workers, and other New Yorkers who cannot report sufficient earnings are also left out. The Assembly, Senate, and Governor must deliver long overdue relief. We believe it is time to tax the rich to fund the poor, and New York billionaires have grown wealthier during the pandemic, while many excluded workers struggle. The Invest in Our New York Act includes 5 other new.
Thank you, Theo. Your time is up. Where did you go? Oh, okay. All righty. Again, I have to ask everyone to try and stick with the signs that Laura is giving in order for us to stay on track. Lionel Turner is next up. Lionel, CSEA Local 860 President. Lionel?
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hi there, gotcha.
Okay. Well, actually, first of all, I want to thank you all for this opportunity to address all of y'all. All of y'all and all of us have inherited a lot. And I'm supposed to ask y'all to put this back in the budget, but the challenges that we are facing are unprecedented. The people who I represent, who y'all know and see, and the ones we don't see and know, are really catching a lot of hell. I'm not going to place a burden on all of y'all. The burden is on all of us to figure out how we're going to get out of this mess. Hopefully we can have a more humane budget, but I don't think so. I really think we have to educate ourselves and other civic leaders, and we have to deepen our understanding of this problem because it's perennial. And all of you heard these stories before, and all of this is interconnected. And all I'm saying or asking that what can we do to help y'all? Because if we don't create a new model, a new vision, or somehow, it's only gonna get worse. And then 100 years from now, people are gonna say we did the best. Well, who amongst us is gonna raise a paradigm to look at something a little bit differently? I know how y'all feel about it. I share this feeling. What can we do? I got to do a better job by educating and elucidating complex issues. COVID, the economy, these things are going to get worse. It's what we inherited and maybe beyond our control. But what can we do? So I will support y'all in informing me what we can do, but I must do a better job in educating my colleagues. And I'm suggesting those of you who I'm looking at, plumb the depth of your soul. There's a lot more stuff that we need to tackle. Thank you, and stay strong and be safe.
Thank you so much, Lionel. I'm now looking for Dr. Oscar Cohen, Spring Valley NAACP. Dr. Cohen, you're on. I'm looking at, oh, here he is.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go. Unmute, Dr. Cohen.
Sorry about that. My name's Oscar Cohen. I'm the co-chair of the Spring Valley NAACP Education Committee. For more than a decade, the Spring Valley NAACP has been fighting for the public schools students of East Ramapo Central School District. Our district is made up of 9,000 public school students, 92% who are Black and brown, and 28,000 private school students, 98% of whom are white. This is more than double the private school population of any other district in New York State, with the exception of New York City. Let me just open this. Sorry.
There you go.
Although our school district is just a couple of hours away from Albany, it operates as a Jim Crow education system. It's a segregated system. Since the white majority's takeover of the board, public schools in East Ramapo have been chronically understaffed, students denied basic supports, and the graduation rate an abysmal 65% in a county where graduation rates are over 90%. Our dropout rate is 20% compared to 5% for the rest of the district. School board members continue to systematically deny the right to adjust education for the 9,000 public school students. Attempts at intervention have not repaired systemic structural deficiencies, nor changed the behavior of the white majority. Substantive governance reform is required to protect the Black and brown children of this district. This summer, we prevailed in a Federal Voting Rights Act lawsuit that starkly revealed the board's use of unethical and unlawful practices to maintain its control. The ample evidence of deliberate intent left no doubt that the board relies on classic segregationist tactics pulled from a white supremacist playbook. The Voting Rights Act is just the most recent battle in a long struggle to deliver a fair education to East Ramapo students. For more than a decade's worth of investigations have turned up repeated findings of corruption, mismanagement, and self-dealing by board members. COVID-19 has tested us in ways we couldn't imagine. In East Ramapo, over 5,000 of its 9,000 students were without access to remote learning for 6 to 8 months. The New York legislature must not ignore what's happening in East Ramapo. We ask every member of the state Senate to stop this 21st century Jim Crow education from continuing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cohen. Looking now for Tina Posterly, Planned Parenthood, Hudson-Peconic. Hi, Tina, you're on.
Hi there, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to testify today. I appreciate it very much. My name is Tina Posterly, and I'm Associate Vice President of Government Affairs and Advocacy at Planned Parenthood Hudson-Peconic. We cover Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Suffolk counties. We have 4 health centers in Westchester located in Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Yonkers, and White Plains. And I'm here today to speak in support of items in the executive budget aimed at protecting and advancing reproductive health care. We're grateful that the executive budget has kept the funding for the family planning grant stable, especially during this challenging economic environment. Similar to previous years, this program has been flat funded. So we ask that the legislator add approximately $1 million in additional funding to allow recipients to support all patients. Fully funding the family planning grant allows healthcare providers like Planned Parenthood Hudson-Peconic to continue to provide care to all people, regardless of their income. This past year hasn't been without challenges for everyone, but we've continued to provide high quality reproductive healthcare services to our patients by quickly shifting to provide telehealth services. This has improved access to care during the pandemic and wouldn't have been possible without the federal government allowing for these flexibilities. Now we need the state to ensure we have a regulatory environment that maintains telehealth as a sustainable access point to care, including payment parity and the removal of barriers that unnecessarily limit how providers can deliver that care. We support the steps outlined in the executive budget to make broadband access more affordable to low-income communities, therefore increasing access to telehealth services. And as a prenatal care provider, Planned Parenthood Hudson-Peconic supports the investment in efforts to address the systemic causes of glaring inequalities in our maternal health system. We ask that the legislature continue to fund existing maternal mortality initiatives and advance new efforts to extend Medicaid coverage to 1 year post-pregnancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina.
I'm going to jump in now. Next speaker is John Ravitz from the Business Council of New York.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hi, John. Yes.
Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins and members of the Westchester Senate Delegation, thank you for allowing me to participate at this hearing. My name is John Ravitz, and I serve as the Executive VP for the Business Council of Westchester. The BCW is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. And we have 1,000 members representing over 200,000 employees in the county and beyond. And more importantly, the BCW members continue to drive the county's economy in creating economic growth and jobs. But we know the challenges that you're facing, a $15 billion deficit. Albany has never seen that before. We have continued and will continue to advocate our congressional delegation and the leaders in Washington to give New York State its fair share. And you have our commitment on that. We also will be sending you our 2021 legislative agenda, which has many budget issues in there. But I would like to touch on 2 budget issues for you today. As many of you know, one of our top legislative priorities has been and continues to be that the state lift the moratorium and grant Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts a full gaming license. Empire City is one of the most prominent gaming and entertainment destinations in the tri-state area, with an annual payroll of over $80 million, and as the largest private employer in the county with more than 1,000 employees prior to the pandemic. Empire City, which was acquired by MGM in January of 2019, is critical to the economic growth of the Westchester County and the state. Allowing Empire City to achieve its potential as a full-scale casino, complete with retail and mobile sports betting and live dealers, would significantly speed up the state's fiscal recovery and help put New Yorkers back to work in family-sustaining union jobs. Think about this. Every new live dealer table game that Empire City can offer creates 6 new jobs, resulting in tremendous job growth. We also feel, again, and let me be specific about sports betting, that any mobile sports betting initiative that is considered in the state during the budget process must include the opportunity for Empire City to have a path to market through a competitive bidding process or direct license path for video lottery terminal operators in New York. MGM Resorts is an industry and market leader in the country, and to cut them out of the market would be to the detriment of the state as a whole and put the brick and mortar property at risk. During the budget process, the 2 segments, full gaming licenses and mobile sport betting, should not be separated. And if mobile sport betting...
Your time is up.
Wow.
Sorry.
All right, well, you know my concerns, and we'll send you the rest of our remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Jan Fisher, if she is here, from Nonprofit Westchester. I think she told me she may not be able to make it. If we don't have her, I will go to Florence McHugh from NYSET, New York State United Teachers. Hi, Florence.
Hi, I'm here. So thank you so much, Leader Stewart-Cousins and our powerhouse delegation. You know, the best delegation in the state. As you know, I'm Florence McHugh. Today I'm representing NYSET, New York State United Teachers. We have already submitted written testimony for today, and Karine D'Amato will be speaking later today, and others of our leaders will be speaking at the 16th. I'd like to just highlight a couple of things. First, of course, you are so aware of the mental health crisis and the behavioral health issues that have been going on. You've heard it from everywhere. But I also want to highlight the retirees. The retirees also are being treated terribly because everyone's staying away from them and they're alone and they're isolated and no one wants to make them sick. And so they're having a crisis of their own. We're doing our best. But I'd like you all, as you go through the state and as you go through all of these pieces in the budget, to think about stigma and access, the stigma of mental health and behavioral health issues. There are so many people who don't want to admit that they're having issues, and then we know where that leads. And there are, then once they do admit they have a problem and they may need a little help here or there, then they don't have access. It's kind of like access to vaccine. You know, people are not getting the proper access. They have to jump through so many hoops. And when you are in an emotional crisis, you are not going to jump through hoops to get help. You're just not. And so even those who have very good health insurance have a problem accessing decent and right-of-way mental health things. All right, I want you also to take a look at SUNY and CUNY. We have a lot of different requirements, certification requirements that they're so specialized, and we don't have the teachers to teach the programs to get the students the certification so that they can teach and fill the programs. So that is an issue. The more we cut CUNY and SUNY, the worse it is. Thank you for looking at IRMA, getting rid of the IRMA, get rid of that. Westchester's hit the worst. And thank you for helping Harckham with our Indian Point.
Thank you so much, Florence. Next is Barbara Mazur from GROW. And after that will be Tom Gabriel from the United Way of Westchester and Putnam. I see Barbara. His name.
Youth. Okay. Start my video.
Right.
Do you see me?
We see the top of your head.
Okay, now you can see the rest of me.
Yes. Okay.
I'm moving the wrong way. Okay, Hello, Shelley. Hello, Andrea. Greetings to Senator Reichlin-Melnick. We worked with your predecessor. GROW is a strictly voluntary agency, well, a group devoted to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Now I'm more in focus, I think. In any case, I first want to thank you, Senator Cousins, for creating a new committee devoted solely to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The chairman is doing wonders right away. And then we have our own Assemblyman Avenanti in the Assembly. So hopefully we will shake things up. It's long overdue. We did send you our position paper, and I'm just going to read briefly. GROW advocates that the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities fiscal year 2022 budget appropriation and spending plan be designed to reform delivery systems to efficiently provide critical care services and not reduce the habilitation supports desperately needed by people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I urge you to read that paper. I will say that we have been cut since Governor Patterson, and yet we have an increase in people coming under OPWD's district mandate, I should say. So if you do the math, you know that if you don't even have any increases, you're going to be falling behind in your ability to provide more services. However, we have had cuts. And while
Barbara, your time is up, so I'm just giving you a heads up.
Oh, okay. Well, look at our position paper, and we really want to be a participant in whatever comes about. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to go backwards for 1 minute before Tom Gabriel and have County Executive George Latimer, who's joined us. There you are, George. Okay.
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for taking the time to hold this hearing. I'll try to be brief and forgive the sunlight, which seems to be shining in my face. We really appreciate the fact that the Senate delegation is holding this public hearing, and certainly by Zoom, it makes it easier for us to share some thoughts. And we approached this session with two basic understandings. The first one is an attitude of gratitude that on a couple of major issues, the Senate delegation for Westchester has been very helpful to the county government. The lifting of the bond cap last year enabled us to do major capital project works, things like the Memorial Field project and others, without having to break the project underneath the $10 million cap. And so we can move forward in a productive way. And that came through your assistance as you advocated it, passed the bill through, and included it through your House. And we also want to thank you 2 years ago for the additional revenue that we received when we rationalized the sales tax revenue and were able to thereby reduce county property taxes over the last 2 years. We know that our state legislative partners, both the Assembly members and the senators, can take credit for that property tax decrease because it was your action that helped us accomplish that mission. And so we thank you for that. We also know that you face a very steep budget deficit this year. However steep it is, it's making decisions very difficult. And we recognize that we're not at the table saying, attend to us and ignore others. You have to make some very difficult choices between a host of different areas. I want to thank Shelley Mayer personally, my senator, for her advocacy on school funding. And we know that how critical that is. And even though, we're in a situation where dollars are precious, everybody that I talk to highlights how important the public education of their children are. So we know that's critical. And the leadership of Andrea Stewart-Cousins in the Senate is very much part of that. We support the additional federal money that the state needs, and of course the county needs as well, to be able to deal with this pandemic. Absent the money that we received last year, we would have been in dire straits. And so we think that both the state as well as the local governments, county and local governments as well, should receive that additional assistance. We do think that it is wise to reject any of the plans that the governor may have to fund the AIM program working through the county sales tax. We think there is a responsibility that the state government has to those local governments, and by channeling it through the county, it absolves itself of a responsibility and puts that burden inappropriately on us. We don't tax income, and we don't tax business profit. We tax property, and we tax sales tax activity. And both of those are more regressive means of taxation. So we should try to leave those levels of taxation for the things that are services provided to the real estate, and try to do what we can do progressively. I recognize that you're going to have to raise revenues in a variety of different ways, and we will stand behind you governmentally, politically, in those decisions that are ahead of you. We support, as you do, the full casino license in Yonkers, which would have companion licenses elsewhere in the downstate area. We support the effort for expanding sports betting. Those are voluntary means of people doing activities they want to do that will help what we have to do. And as we had to do to get revenue to stabilize our county budget, so you do the same, and we will stand behind you as you make those decisions and indicate that you're good. So I know my time is up. I'll just add to it the $5.8 million in the budget for the patrol of New York State parkways, an annual ask every year. And we also want to note that in our legislative package that we sent to you, we highlighted some of the bills that you are sponsors of that we are supportive. Bills by Senator Biaggi, Senator Mayer, Senator Harckham, Indian Point, and a host of things. And we're happy to lend our voice to yours whenever your legislation is important, and to show that you have your local governments behind you in your work in Albany.
Thank you so much, George. Thank you for your leadership and partnership with all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. Thank you all.
And now we go to Tom Gabriel from the United Way of Westchester and Putnam. After that, I believe Rachel Halpern from Legal Services of the Hudson Valley.
Good afternoon, Senators, and thank you. I'm Tom Gabriel, the President and CEO of the United Way of Westchester and Putnam. Once again, Governor Cuomo did not include 211 in his budget. We understand that there were budget challenges, of course, but we also recognize that 13.6% of New Yorkers are living in poverty, and another 31% are living paycheck to paycheck. And those are numbers from before the pandemic. I implore you to support Senator Pete Harckham's sign-on letter. Thank you, Senator Harckham, which requests the inclusion of $2 million for the 211 helpline in the final spending plan. 211 has proven over the past 15 years to be the most efficient way to connect families to the programs and services they need. The 211 system saw a huge surge in activity last year as the COVID-19 pandemic caused both a health and financial crisis. During 2019, the 211 network gave 1.8 million referrals. Last year, the network gave 4.9 million referrals, a 172% increase. And more than 2.3 million of those were directly related to COVID-19. The 211 network fully mobilized to meet these challenges and provide millions of New Yorkers information on testing sites and vaccinations, as well as information on food assistance, housing, daycare, and government benefits such as unemployment and SNAP. But call centers like ours here in White Plains, which serves 24 counties and 4 New York regions, have experienced increased staffing and technology costs to meet the surge in inquiries. Cash flow and diminishing resources threaten to break our network as a result of extremely late payments on the 2019-20 state contract, and moreover, the 2020-21 legislative grant was only just approved last week. Without your support, 211 will not be able to help your constituents for much longer. We want to continue to be the safety net for New Yorkers, but we need our partners in government like you, who always have, sustained support and make good on our priorities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Good timing. Next is Rachel Halpern, Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, to be followed by Barry McGoey, Union President of International Association of Firefighters, Local 628.
Okay.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this year's executive budget. My name is Rachel Halprin, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. I've submitted some pretty detailed testimony, so I'm just going to cut to the chase and focus on 5 key budgetary issues. Of urgency this year is your continued support for the Westchester Housing and Kinship Caregiver Legal Services Project. Last year, the legislature generously awarded legal services $400,000 to provide eviction prevention services to residents at risk of becoming homeless. As we all know, we are bracing for a tsunami of evictions to hit our region when the federal and state legal protections for tenants expire later this year. The most recent census data shows that 1 in 5 renters are behind in their rent. And that translates in Westchester to potentially close to 27,000 people facing eviction. Without this essential funding, legal services will be forced to reduce the number of housing attorneys in Westchester at the precise time that the demand is skyrocketing. The second issue I wanted to bring to your attention was the Survivors of Domestic Violence Legal Project in Rockland County. We have spoken with Senator Reichlin-Melnick about this. $90,000 was allocated in last year's budget for us to represent survivors in Rockland County. And with that funding, we assisted 146 victims of domestic violence. And we certainly hope that this is continued in this coming year's budget as well. Third, I wanted to identify for you the Legal Services Assistance Fund, or LSAF. This has been critical funding for civil legal services. We receive $151,000 of this funding, which funds our LGBTQ unit in Westchester County. Fourth, I wanted to bring to your attention HOP, the Homeowner Protection Project, which we provide assistance to people who are at risk of being foreclosed upon. Obviously, this is very important. And finally, DAP, our Disability Advocacy Project, which is also a statewide program where we assist disabled people appeal when they are denied SSI benefits. So we hope that these 5 things are on your mind and that you'll support them in the budget.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much. Next is Barry McGoey, to be followed by Henry Moss from New York Hearing Majority.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Greetings, Madam Senate Majority Leader, Senator Stewart-Cousins, and the other distinguished senators from the Westchester delegation, and it looks like several from the Bronx, Putnam, Dutchess, and Rockland. My name is Barry McGoey, and although many of you know me from my prior role, today I am speaking as an individual, as a resident of New York State and Westchester County. I would, of course, join prior and future speakers, I'm sure, in advocating for increased school aid funding for our public schools, as well as for significant increases in AIM funding to our local governments. The pandemic has changed how we all live and has taken far too many lives, but it also has wreaked havoc on the budgets of our local governments and school districts, who need you and the state of New York more than ever. I know you won't let these calls for help go unanswered. I also want to take this opportunity to join the Business Council of Westchester, our county executive, and many others, and ask you to seriously consider expanding and accelerating full casino gaming in the downstate region. We already have 2 world-renowned organizations engaged in limited VLT-style casinos, and they are both willing to pay hundreds of millions of desperately needed dollars to be given the opportunity to operate full live gaming casinos, which will generate billions of dollars of new revenue, and perhaps even more importantly, thousands of new permanent jobs, good jobs, union jobs with excellent pay, health insurance, and other union benefits. Both operators fully support unions and union workers. They build union and they operate union. Allowing MGM in Yonkers and Genting in Queens to obtain full casino style operations now will result in an immediate investment by both firms in the building out of additional casino floor areas with the possibilities for hotels, convention centers, restaurants, and entertainment venues, something that we all are hoping to see and be enjoying again in the near future. And did I mention all those union jobs? I will be submitting more detailed comments in writing to supplement this short oral testimony. And I thank you for your time and consideration. Stay safe and be well. God bless you all.
Thank you, Barry. Next, we have Henry Moss from the New York Caring Majority, to be followed by Mike Hagan from the Westchester County Department of Public Service, PBA, not public service, county officers, police officers. Henry.
Unmute,
Yeah.
start video.
Very good.
Thank you. My name is Henry Moss and I live in Senator Biaggi's district. I'm here to support the New York Caring Majority efforts to increase budget support for disabled, older and younger adults and the workers who care for them. This articulates with the effort I helped lead to have personal care included in the New York Health Act, legislation that I know most of you support. Much needs to be done to improve and expand long-term care as the population ages, worker shortages worsen, and emotional and economic burden on family caregivers grows. Two recommendations are especially important for today's discussion. First, the legislature should reverse the cuts to the Medicaid personal care program. It was caused by tightened medical and financial eligibility rules and the global Medicaid cap. These cuts make no sense. They're causing harm, and any savings will be reduced by the cost of treating those who suffer the falls, infections, and other adverse effects that result from failing to provide assistance with basics like shopping, cooking, and house cleaning, among other activities of daily living. I provided details about these negative impacts in my written testimony. Savings will be further reduced by the economic impact of family caregivers in their peak earning years leaving the workforce to provide this care. Secondly, the delivery of care will not be possible if we don't recruit and train more home care workers. Home care is a difficult job, involving high levels of burnout, injury, and turnover. We must treat home care workers as respected paraprofessionals and a valued part of the care team. Most importantly, the conditions of employment must be improved. These hardworking and dedicated aides need stable schedules, a career path, and union-level pay and benefits. This means making the soon-to-be-introduced fair pay for home care legislation part of the budget process. I believe Senator May and Assemblyman Gottfried will be introducing that in the next week or two.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Henry. Michael Hagan, if you're here, it's your turn. If not, and I think so far he's not here, we will go to Dave Steck from YoFi Fest.
Hello.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you, Senators, Madam Leader, and Laura Manara, our timekeeper, for all of your hard work and for giving us all the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Dave Steck, and I'm the Executive Director of YoFi Fest, the Yonkers Film Festival, and its Digital Media and Education Arts Center. I know the deficit you're all facing, but I'm here to ask you to please increase your funding to Arts Westchester to help many of the other worthwhile arts nonprofit organizations like mine recover from the devastating effects of the COVID-19 crisis. We rely on Arts Westchester's regranting and support in order to fulfill our mission to provide arts and cultural programs to the underserved communities of Westchester. I used to say it starts with the arts, but recently I've optimistically changed it to it restarts with the arts. It also reopens with the arts, revitalizes with the arts, and reemploys with the arts. The arts are an economic engine that transform our communities and change lives. From a lost year of our students' education to the mental health for our seniors, the need for what the arts provide has never been greater. We look forward to a time that we can safely reopen and operate again, but in order we had prior to shutting down the pandemic. As Executive Director of an I've used to host film screenings, present educational workshops, and provide opportunities to local students, families, and seniors that otherwise would not be available to them. All of this creates jobs, stimulates local businesses, and increases property values, which adds to the tax base. Increased funding from you would have the direct result of allowing Arts Westchester to increase their funding for arts organizations like mine. This would allow even more organizations to offer even more opportunities and do even more good, and help make Westchester an even greater cultural destination and more fantastic place to live, and improve the lives of all Westchester residents. Thank you again, and be well.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Turn it back over to the Majority Leader.
Thank you so much. Next, we will be hearing from Jessica Vecchiarelli, Austining for Fair Funding. Thank you, Jessica. And after Jessica will be Constance Kehoe.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, let me share my video. Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jess Vecchiarelli, and I'm the Director for Austining for Fair Funding. In addition to echoing the concerns that have already been shared today around foundation aid, I'd like to also talk about the reduction of STAR payments to school districts. The reduction amount is used in the calculation of the reduction of aid and funding to school districts due to increased federal aid with a local district funding adjustment. Our local district funding adjustment in Austining is $4.6 million. This amount will need to be replenished in 2022-23 school year. And this stimulus payment, because it's a stimulus payment from the federal government. This happened in 2010 and was called GEA. It took the state 5 years to make the school districts whole. So we're hoping that doesn't happen again, and that's something that you're aware of. Austining and other minority majority school districts were severely disadvantaged prior to the pandemic. This school year, our schools were forced to start remote, while wealthier, less diverse districts opened their doors in September, some of which are offering 5 days of in-person instruction. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is worsening. My children, who are in the hybrid program, attended school 4 days last month in January, while comparatively, the kids across the street in Briarcliff attended 19 days of in-person instruction. I'm deeply concerned about the social and emotional well-being of our children. I've watched my daughter, who is a lover of school, deteriorate under home learning. And this is without Wi-Fi access and connectivity issues, which many in minority majority school districts face. Please invest in the most vulnerable children of New York and provide accelerated aid where it is so desperately needed. This systemic racism needs to end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Constance Kehoe, Connie, the trustee from Irvington.
Okay, hello.
Hi,
thank you so much. Today I'd like to make you all aware, if you're not already, of the mission and activities of Revolutionary Westchester 250 and the critically important related efforts at the state level, both from the Office of the State Historian and importantly through a bill with the title New York State 250th Commemoration Act. So there's national legislation to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the founding of the United States, but each state needs to create a state level commission to qualify for any funding that comes down from the federal initiative, and 10 states have done that already. And we are, I think New York is now nicely on its way, thanks to some of you. Although some of you know and are fully aware of this local, state, and national initiative, I just was happy that the 6 of you were together today. I'm pleased that 4 of you have districts that extend beyond Westchester County, because actually the telling of the full story of Westchester's American Revolution history is only possible by joining together regionally. So to Senator Biaggi and Bailey, 2 quick examples. In Senator Biaggi's district, there's a dramatic story of Wappinger Sachem Daniel Nimham that's unfolded. It's an exciting story. Senator Bailey, there's a incredible kid who was Andrew Corsa during the Revolution, who we might have had a different outcome if it hadn't been for that guy. So I'm just saying civic engagement, inclusion, accurate discussion of our history, involvement of the arts, our youth, support for heritage tourism, and economic development. I'm ready to answer any of your questions as they come up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie. Next, we're going to hear from Jock Praris, Westchester Children's Association, followed by Cameron Saliani of the Working Families Party.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Thank you all so much for allowing us to speak. My name is Josh Priwas. I'm the Program and Policy Manager at Westchester Children's Association. And I would like to thank you all for this opportunity, as well as your sustained commitment to Westchester's children and to supporting a good future for everyone in Westchester. I know, and everybody knows, it's been said about the budgetary challenges, and that's why your leadership is so important right now, especially. I wanted to just highlight a couple of things on our budget recommendations, which we submitted in writing as well. But firstly, with the race equity impact statement, and I'll just say that, you know, for us at WCA, racial justice recognizes the recognition of structural inequities and sustained actions to advance new and existing resources to create opportunities, remove barriers, and eliminate racially disparate outcomes for children of color across institutions. So with that, as I get into our priorities for this budget season, I'll just say that, you know, there are 6 of them. The first is remote learning, making sure that all students and families have access to remote learning tools, trainings, and resources that they need to, you know, advance their academics and have continuity and support. The second of the 6 is child poverty. And with over 20,000 Westchester children and 700,000 children across New York State living at or below the federal poverty line, an additional 14,000 Westchester children and 325,000 New York State children came into poverty with the COVID pandemic. So there is absolutely a need for immediate legislative action. We're urging you to pass the Child Poverty Reduction Act, which is S2755, in the one House budget bills as an immediate response. Our next third bucket is youth justice. Raise the implementation plans and a broader youth justice agenda with decreases in youth arrest, detention, placement, and incarceration. And then we also have solutions on suspensions bill and trying to get that passed as well. The need for
I need for you to, I'm sorry, your time is up, Josh. But
Okay,
we
you have
will follow up.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. Next, Cameron Saliani, I'm sorry, Saliani.
Hello, everyone. All right. Hi. Okay, so real quick, I want to second the arts point that was made by, I believe, Dave Steck. I'm an actor in Irvington, New York. I'm in both the Screen Actors Guild, Actors Equity. All the emails I get from the union is, please contact senators, representatives. We are desperate. We are dying out here. So I second what he said. Please look into any sort of budget for the arts. But the big reason I'm here today is 42% of New Yorkers have food insecurity. They are on pantry lines for 12 hours a day. You are all successful politicians. I'm very blessed and privileged as an actor, but just imagine how much time it takes to get to positions where you are, where I am. And imagine now spending 12 hours a day on a line waiting for food just to survive. It's so hard to move anywhere in the world. You are just devastated in concrete gridlock in survival. So, you know, please consider that. Andrew Cuomo has really not done much to help. He cut Medicaid in 2017 by $2.5 billion. In 2019, he underfunded schools by $3.9 billion. What we're calling for is a raise of $50 billion in new sustainable and recurring revenue. There are 6 bills. The progressive income tax bill, it creates a tax system where New Yorkers significantly more money. That will raise $12 to $18 billion. We have the capital gains tax. It's taxes income from investments like stocks, the same as wages. That would raise $7 billion. That's almost $20 billion already. We got the heirs tax, Bill 3, a progressive tax on large sums of inherited wealth. That will raise $8 billion. Bill 4, the billionaires tax, it will raise an additional tax on billionaires and constitutional amendment to allow a wealth tax that will raise $23 billion in the first year. Insane. Then the Wall Street tax, of course, got to tax them $12 to $29 billion. It's a small tax. And finally, the corporate tax, repeal the Trump tax cuts, raise $9 billion. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your time.
That was remarkable. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Okay. Our next person we were looking for before, Beth Finkel. We believe we found Beth Finkel. Have we? Yes, we have. Right.
Sorry, I'm coming. All right, to get used to this. I like doing it in person with all of you so much more. And great to see you all. I know what wonderful advocates.
Well, listen, at least you learned today, which is good, This is when we need you. Go ahead.
Thank you all. And you're all friends. And if I call out each of you individually, I'll eat up my whole 2 minutes. So thank you for having me here today. So basically, I want to talk about how COVID has affected older adults. I think you're all aware of the numbers, but I'm just going to say them real quick. 95% of deaths in this country have been people 50 and older. 40% of the deaths have been people in nursing homes, with just under 1% of the US population in nursing homes. And we know in New York, that's actually not the real number. And we are getting the real number right now, I believe. So we really want to keep people in their own homes. Last year, you helped us get rid of the waiting list. This year, the waiting list is back in again to get home and community-based services. It would be $27 million to eliminate the waiting list again this year. So that's a really important number. We do not want people in institutional care. They don't want to be there, but in COVID times, we really don't want to have them there. Next, we strongly oppose policies that would create access to affordable, we strongly want to have more policies for broadband. We've been working on this in any number of ways. ARP supports proposals to enhance and provide additional flexibility for telehealth services. ARP supports the executive budget language for the moratoriums on termination of utility, phone, television, and broadband services. And again, I want to talk about what Senator Rivera introduced yesterday in the Health Committee. Those bills are so important. The compassionate care visitation, address understaffing in nursing homes, ensure facilities spend a greater portion of their budget on resident care. One more, and improve infection control procedure portions of their budget on, improve infection control procedures so residents, staff, and visiting families are safe.
Thank you so much, Ms. Finkel. I appreciate the time. Thank you. See you. All right. Our next person, Tom Shepard. We were looking for Tom. Okay, so I don't believe we found Tom. So we're looking now for Gloria Hadley. Gloria, a constituent. Okay. Is Corinne D'Amato is there. So why don't we talk to Corinne? You're ready.
Hi, everyone. How are you? It's so good to see you. My name is Corinne D'Amato. I'm president of the Mount Vernon Federation of Teachers. And I'm here on behalf of NYSET Political Action Coordinator for the 35th. I'm going to speak so fast. I recognize each of you. You are the superpower of public education, and I am glad to be in your presence. I just, last time we came together, we were discussing the challenges of reopening school in September, you may remember. And it seems hard to believe that we have not had a consistent normal week of school since. I personally have just returned today to my school after my 6th quarantine of the year. Note to self, we are not ready to open to all students without weekly testing for COVID and for both students and staff. And 3 feet is not the new 6 feet. I have finally been able to get an appointment to get vaccinated in the beginning of March, and many of my colleagues searched the state website daily for time slots and locations. I hit the lottery for March 4th. It is a vital first step that we get vaccinated as quickly as possible. In order to accomplish this, I ask that you pass the bill that will grant public employees to receive up to 4 hours of excused leave time, similar to the statutory leave for cancer screenings. These unprecedented times bring forth unprecedented costs to public education districts. The proposed New York State budget reduces state support of over $600 million, unfathomable. The only predictability our schools have is that we again, in the 3rd year in a row, have received damaging and devastating cuts. The executive budget proposed slashed funding to a host of educational programs, including expense-based aid and reduction of funds based on the local district funding adjustment. I don't have to tell you about it. We've discussed it for years. The elimination of the 11 aid formulas and a $700 million reduction in support for these programs unquestionably will harm our students. We should be enhancing support for these programs, such as software and hardware. In Mount Vernon and Yonkers, as well as other districts, we have similar populations that we have been struggling to close the digital divide.
You did the best you could,
Oh,
but we
we
outran your
sent you
time.
a book. It was great seeing you all. Thank you. I will see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. We're looking next for Feiji Horowitz from Caring Professionals. Unmute.
Hi.
Hello.
It's Feige Horowitz. Is it my turn?
Yes, it's your turn. You're on.
Okay. I speak for Caring Professionals, which is a home care company. The demand for qualified home care was established before the pandemic, but the need has only increased. There is a tremendous demand which we cannot meet, even though the pay is low. And this was predicted. The State Department of Labor in 2018 predicted that the occupation of home health aide would see a 66% increase in employment over the next 10 years, the second highest projected increase. And the median annual earnings for New York State home care workers is presently $22,000 a year, with 54% relying on Medicaid and other benefits. This has resulted in a high turnover and an inadequate supply for those seniors who choose the proven healthier option of aging in place, despite the current institutional bias in the regs. A study released in July of this year showed 5,100 home health aides in the Hudson Valley leave their jobs every year because of the meager pay. But if working conditions were improved, the fast-growing sector could serve as a boost to the economy. A CUNY labor report released this week has just found that if the minimum salary of home health aides was increased to $35,000 per annum, it would not only lift them out of poverty, but generate new jobs and revenue. Specifically, Medicaid spending would decrease by over $400 million, while generating $286 million in new income tax revenue, $63.7 million in new sales tax revenue, and nearly $4.6 billion in economic spillover. As mentioned earlier, State Senator Rachel May and Assemblyman Richard Godfrey are co-sponsoring the Fair Pay for Home Care Act, which would require all home care workers to be paid at least $35,000 annually. I urge you to support it so that people can get the home care that they need and want at home with giving dignity to the workers and a boost to the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Okay, I am moving on now to Noah Gitta from the Working Families Party, to be followed by Janet Langsam from Arts Westchester.
Good afternoon, honorable state senators. My name is Noah Gitta. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to testify in front of you today. I am a proud son of 2 Ugandan immigrants that moved from the city to Cortland Manor in order to ensure that their children would have a better education. I went to elementary and middle school in Ossining and high school in Somers. My siblings and I are eternally grateful for my parents' decision to invest in us. Unfortunately, New York State has failed to sufficiently invest in its own citizens because of a skewed tax system. In New York, the top 1% have the lowest tax burden of any income bracket. Over the last 40 years, they're the group that enjoyed the most from New York's economic growth, taking 31% of all income generated in New York in 2015, and making our state the most unequal in the country. During this period, the wealthiest have also benefited from tax cuts at the federal level, and sadly, our state has followed this trend. And incomes are more unequal after state and local taxes are collected than before. Meanwhile, the financial industry, which today makes up 28% of New York's entire economy, has also seen their corporate tax rates lowered, and in 2017 received the highest tax incentives in the country as a share of gross taxes, but were found to be the second least effective. On the other hand, working and middle-class families, many of whom are coming from communities of color, have suffered wage stagnation and the deterioration of public services in healthcare, education, and housing. If we truly want to build back better in New York, we need to support the Invest in Our New York Act, which will bring about a healthy economy, but also a fair and equitable society. Thank you so much, and I hope to support you guys sooner.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you very much. Next is Janet Langsam from Arts Westchester, to be followed by Dr. Mary Kay Sanford. I think you have to unmute, Janet.
And I'll try to.
We hear you.
You hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm
There you
Janet
go.
Langsam. I'm the CEO of Arts Westchester. I'm not used to speaking to a blank screen here, but I guess I've not
We see you.
pressed the right buttons. So I'm here today, as I have been coming to you for many, many, many years, to talk about the arts in Westchester. Usually, I ask you to help the New York State Council on the Arts, as I do this year again. There is a $10 million ask that Bill Magnarelli from Syracuse has made for NYSCA, and I hope that it's something that the Senate can also support. But the arts in Westchester are really hurting, and I like to compare them to the goose that laid the golden egg. And by that I mean the arts pay back more than they get. The $172 million that the arts bring in Westchester pre-COVID supports 5,200 jobs. And $25 million back to state and local government. This year, and I'm predicating this on the fact that the Biden package comes through and the state and the cities and the municipalities get their fair share of what they need post-COVID. I'm predicating an ask of $1 million from the delegation to restart the arts in Westchester and Rockland. We are the funnel for New York State money to both counties, We have not received any money from the New York State Council on the Arts this year. Everything has been frozen. That puts at risk many of the arts organizations in our county. The PPP has been wonderful. It's been helpful in payroll and our keeping people on staff. It will not restart the arts. We have been—
Janet, just to let you know, your time is up. I'm sorry to tell you.
We've been out of business all over. We've been out of business for a year, and we can't just magically bring back the arts to Westchester and to Rockland. So I ask that you think about a special allocation for the arts in Westchester, restart the arts. If you want to really go big, we can restart the arts in New York State. The governor has—
Janet, I'm sorry, your time.
Okay.
But we heard that. Thank you very, very much. Next, we have Dr. Mary K. Sanford and then Sasha Kessler, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. Let's see. Is Dr. Mary Sanford here? Give a minute. Yes, she is. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. The crisis confronting education today did not begin with the pandemic. Indeed, underfunded and inequitable education has been limping along for decades, reactive and crisis-driven. Faced with the pandemic, some school districts shut down, implemented safeguards, including on-site testing, reopened and remained open, while many districts lacked the resources for this level of crisis intervention. They remain in a loop of random testing, shutting down, reopening, with no end in sight. It is reactive and symptomatic of our approach to education, and at what cost. At Lehman College, I coordinate the district's 75 teaching fellows. They serve students with severe disabilities. My teachers often pay for their own PPE, including gowns and shields. They attempt to write IEPs for students who are unable to sign on to remote learning because they need to be supervised and their parents are essential workers. My teachers are conferencing with parents at 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., the only time parents are available. The needs of their children are significant under normal circumstances. I've never met my teachers in person. We're on classes on Zoom. Eyes wide open, they became teachers despite a pandemic. All come from other careers, including my 4 veterans. They believe we cannot move forward as a society until every child has a quality education. When I became a teacher, there were few resources and no standards for students from diverse and special needs populations. The parallels with the present crisis in education are shockingly familiar. We failed those children. I failed those children, and we are failing our children. As an educator, I've had one goal: to be the teacher I would want for my own child. I implore you to do likewise, restore and increase funding for our schools, as children's lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sanford, very much. Next is Sasha Kessler from Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, to be followed by Peter Bernstein.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Sasha. Hi.
Hi, my name is Sasha Kessler. I am a resident of Riverdale in Senator Biaggi's district, and I'm a member leader with the Caring Majority and Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. I'm part of the sandwich generation, simultaneously balancing care for my child and my family, while also balancing care for my aging mother. This has certainly been magnified in the COVID world with a lack of childcare and my mother unfortunately having a stroke this year. I watched my grandmother become a caregiver for my great-grandmother when my grandmother was in her 70s. After 10 years of caring for my great-grandmother, there was almost a sense of relief when my great-grandmother passed away because of the magnitude of challenges of becoming a caregiver at that age. But we had to make that choice because home care was not a full-time home care that my great-grandmother needed, was not an option for my family. New York is facing an unprecedented elder boom. While New York State's going to grow in population by 1.3% by 2040, the population of those over 80 will grow by 42.4%. And most of us at some point in our lives are going to need home care. And certainly we know that most people, particularly right now, want to age in homes, in their communities. But this growth in the aging population is hitting a challenge in that there is a lack of trained and qualified home care workers who are paid adequate wages to sustain the system. I've emailed my testimony, but our two biggest requests for this year. We want to ensure that every home care worker in this state has an increase in wages this year. New York must increase home care and CPDA wages to 150% of the minimum wage and restore funding cuts to prevent mass institutionalization, particularly in light of the COVID pandemic. In addition, we're asking to create a home care jobs innovation fund funded at $15 million to ensure that we can build up a qualified and maintain a workforce for the future. Thank you. And COVID.
Thank you.
So much.
And the good timing with your cat. Perfect timing. Thank you so much.
You listening today.
Next is Peter Bernstein, to be followed by Dino Caroselli. There you are, Peter.
Hi, good afternoon. Nice to see you. I'm Peter Bernstein from Irvington. I'm a co-founder of the Irvington Activist and a board member of Community Voices Heard, but I'm testifying as a resident today. First, I want to thank you for the most productive and progressive legislative session in New York history that followed the election of the majority under the leadership of my senator, the majority leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. We're so proud of the Westchester delegation. We are not our grandparents' Westchester. For somebody, these days to see, the leadership, Black women in leadership, to have somebody maybe say, oh, you should talk to Jamaal, and I won't know whether they mean Senator Jamaal Bailey or Congressman Jamaal Bowman. What a different era. Anyway, I'm here to urge you to pass the Invest in Our New York Act. As you know, the package is 6 bills that can raise $50 billion to ensure that we take care of each other and rebuild our economy. We all know that state and local governments can do so much more for our communities with more revenue. Living in Westchester, we see the unacceptable inequality of community support systems. The wealthy residents of Westchester and New York, myself included, can afford to pay more state taxes to support education, healthcare, and other investments in the public good. My capital gains taxes should be higher. There should be a small tax on financial transactions. Our state income taxes could be more progressive. We know that New York State billionaires have seen their wealth grow by more than a booming $81 million to more than $600 billion just during this pandemic. It's time to stand up to Governor Cuomo and increase his taxes on the wealthy in New York. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Next is Dino Caroselli from Release Aging People in Prison campaign, to be followed by Ben Dubin-Thaler from BioBus. I see it says Noel Casey, but I suspect that is Dino Caroselli. Your name was changed.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dino Caroselli. I'm a senior citizen with many medical issues and a resident of Westchester. I reside at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. I presently serve 3 decades on a 65-year life sentence. After reading Governor Cuomo's budget, I was shocked. It did not address the basic needs of incarcerated New Yorkers. It ignores the fact that we are in the midst of a deadly pandemic and the dangers of living in prison, especially without the luxury of social distancing. I lost a couple of my friends to COVID. There were no ventilators or oxygen for them, just suffering for weeks until they were gone. The budget ignores It's time for the legislators of this state to pass two very important bills, elder parole and the Fair and Timely Parole Act. We live in a society that promotes acceptance, understanding, and forgiveness. But harsh sentencing laws don't allow for the ideal of second chances. America affords its citizens with the most human and civil rights. Yet we throw the key away on people who worked hard to rehabilitate themselves, never providing them that second chance. Thanks for listening. Peace, health, and blessings.
Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next is Ben Dubin-Thaler, to be followed by Sherry Reich.
Hello, my name is Ben Dubin-Thaler. Thank you, senators, for having me here today. I am a scientist. I'm a citizen of the state of New York, and I am proud to be the founder and executive director of BioBus. We are a group of scientists. There are 21 of us full-time on staff, and we have brought the excitement of scientific discovery to over 300,000 students in New York City and in New York State over the last 10 years. I am thrilled to have had the support of the New York State government. You helped us build our current most state-of-the-art mobile science lab. And this is a science lab that visits schools all across New York City, all across Westchester, up the Hudson Valley and Albany, all across the state. And students come onto the bus and get to meet scientists, many for the first time in their lives. They get to use research microscopes like a 10,000 times magnifying electron microscope. And it starts many of those students on a path to a scientific career. And as you all know, the biomedical sector of our economy is one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy. And as this pandemic has highlighted, it's one of the most important places that we can be investing our educational resources. So thank you so much to Senator Biaggi and to all of you who have supported BioBus in the past. We are hoping to get a line in the state operating budget this year to support our ongoing operations. Our staff has made an incredible pivot to online programs. We've continued to reach thousands of students every month online and continue to inspire the next generation of scientists. And just want to thank you again for your past support and for your support for BioBus and for all the young scientists of New York in the coming years.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you very much. Next, we have Sherry Reich, to be followed by Michael McGuire.
Hello. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity you're giving to the League of Humane Voters to present our request here today. I am Sherry Reich, a volunteer with the League of Humane Voters. I'm requesting that the general fund, which consists of public tax dollars, be used only for broad needs of the society, such as health, education, environment, and small businesses. New York State is stretched beyond its limit to meet its basic obligations to the public and cannot afford to provide frill to divisions of the government that exist to provide hobbies to less than 3% of the population, namely to hunters. We came across the 2012 audit of the Conservation Fund. According to the State Comptroller's Office, it was the last audit done by them. It should be noted that the purpose of the Conservation Fund is to promote hunting, fishing, and trapping. We found that the general fund provided millions to the Conservation Fund for these reasons. While the fishing and hunting entities were not separated, we assumed that millions went toward hunting. As a retired CPA, I was surprised as to the lack of transparency as to the entities supported by the Conservation Fund and how much they received. We will be submitting written testimony as well to elaborate on these points and urge the New York State Legislature to use New York State tax money wisely for the sake of the tremendous public need in this time of crisis and not to increase the profits of the firearms industry via hunting. The public deserves better, and so does wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Next is Michael McGuire from the Hudson Valley Cannabis Industry Association. Then Joanne Rodriguez, and one person we skipped over, but who's here now after that is Audrey Campbell.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mike McGuire. I'm a member of the Regulatory Committee of the Hudson Valley Cannabis Industry Association and a co-founder of a cannabis education startup called Stable Garden. I'm here to explain why the legal personal cultivation of cannabis should be included in the state budget in 2021. Personal cultivation means growing a small number of cannabis plants in your home or garden. Growing cannabis is similar in many ways to growing tomatoes at home, uses about the same amount of space, and takes about the same amount of effort and energy. People grow cannabis for the same reasons they might grow tomatoes, for personal use, because gardening is fun, or because they want to learn a new skill. While growing the two plants is similar, using the cannabis you grow at home is more complicated. A tomato is delicious right off the vine, but raw cannabis is pretty useless. Turning it into usable flower is a craft that takes time, patience, and skill. The economic impact of personal cultivation is similar to home brewing. When legal, people will spend money at garden centers and hydroponic stores across the state, creating jobs for New Yorkers and generating tax revenues in this fiscal year. Also, 90% of the people employed as brewers in New York microbreweries first learned to brew at home. Personal cultivation will similarly be a training ground for people who hope to work in the cannabis industry, particularly the people who have been most harmed by the war on drugs when it finally becomes legal here in New York. There must, of course, be reasonable limitations. Unregulated sales must remain illegal. Cannabis gardens should be limited to 12 mature plants per household. Landlords and municipalities must be allowed to set reasonable limits based on available space or other issues of local concern. Due to the long history of the demonization of the plant, there are many misconceptions about home cultivation of cannabis. However, states that permit personal cultivation with reasonable restrictions have not experienced any negative effects. There's been no demonstrated diversion to unregulated markets, no increased youth access, or any other issues. New York should be issuing guidance on the cultivation of cannabis at home rather than wasting money on further enforcement of prohibition. There are many additional reasons why personal cultivation should be legalized, from reducing overdose deaths from opioids to reducing the inequitable enforcement of criminal laws against Black and Brown communities. I'd love to tell you more if I had time, and we'll submit further testimonies coming in the next couple of weeks.
Perfect time. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Next is Joanne Rodriguez, to be followed by Audrey Campbell.
Mute. I just unmuted, start the video. Hi, everyone. How are you? Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here today and given this opportunity to speak with Senator Mayer and Senator Cousins, two very strong women that are strong as advocates. So I'm going to try to do this quickly. I know we have 2 minutes. First of all, I have two very personal matters to me that I want you to hear. Number one being education. I am a parent of a child in a Yonkers public school. Now for years, the Yonkers public schools have not had a school in-house sports program. Also, they have not had full-time social work available to our students. Now, let's first talk about social work. Hopefully this will happen as our children start transitioning back into school full-time and in person. I think it's very vital to them that they have that available to them on a daily basis. My son is a very vocal, and he's very much aware of what affects him. And what has affected him during this pandemic was, he says to me, he feels like he's lacking his social skills and become very antisocial. So that's my concerns as a parent as he transitions back into school. Sports programs, I'm lucky, he's lucky, we're lucky that I was able to afford to put him into private programs outside of school, but it's so vital for all the other kids in Yonkers public schools who cannot afford this. And we've not had it for so long. Now is even more especially important that we do reinstate this into our schools, because it is a strong building block of the future of our children. You have to remember that Yonkers is the largest school district in Westchester. We make up a large population of children who are of minority. And I think it's going to build the character, it's going to increase the grades, the graduation rate. It is vital that we get this done and not another year go by without it. Another very personal matter that I want to address, and I've spoken to Shelley Mayer with this previously, and she was very compassionate about this. And I wanted to make it clear to everyone that my father was one of the thousands that died in the nursing home in Westchester County. It was the toughest decision I had to make as a child to put my parent into a nursing facility, but I had no choice. We did not have the adequate care that we would be able to give him at home. But we remained very, very present in his care at the nursing home. So just imagine that when the nursing homes relied on me prior to this pandemic to feed my father his dinner, because his Parkinson's disease would not enable him to hold the spoon on his own, and the lack of adequate staffing would not allow. My father sometimes may have gone hungry that night. So I did play a major role in the care of my father prior to this pandemic. Now, just imagine for a second, I want you to put yourselves into my position for a moment. And the first 2 weeks of April, I was not able to find out, or speak, or hear how my father was doing because no one was answering the phones. This was a war zone happening inside the nursing home. Okay, I know it was unprecedented times. We were not prepared for this, but as a facility that is required by law, even prior to this pandemic, to provide the adequate care, okay, and training, we should have been prepared nonetheless, and we weren't. And it resulted in so many undue deaths. And I can tell you, I can share with you my father's personal story at another time. That's not a time for now, but I want to propose two things.
Well, you're Joanne, I didn't want to stop you, but you're over.
Okay.
And we did that to everyone, and we all send our condolences, all of us here who care deeply about this issue. Thank you for sharing.
Can we improve staffing, Shelley, Mayor? Can we improve staffing in our nursing homes moving forward?
We are moving a lot of nursing home bills now, and we are on it. So
Thank you.
I do appreciate it. And the only reason you got some time is because we're so sorry. And also, you're the last person.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No.
Not?
One more.
Oops.
No.
Oops.
One
But
more
anyway,
help.
thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
I think we have Audrey Campbell from 1199 SEIU, who we tried to put in earlier. She's here now.
Okay.
And that is the last person, I believe. There she is.
Audrey, unmute.
Let's see. Can you unmute, Audrey? You have to unmute your mic.
Audrey, are you driving?
Looks like she's driving. No, you gotta unmute. Emiliana, can you unmute Audrey?
I can only ask to unmute. Unfortunately, I cannot unmute them myself, so I'm sending that request.
Okay, thank you. Can you unmute yourself?
I think she's trying. I guess it's not happening.
We'll give her one more minute. Do you see the red mic? Yes, but.
Click the red microphone with the line on it. Click it.
I think Audrey was going to talk very much about what Ms. Rodriguez talked about, which I believe she's from Yonkers Gardens, and she wanted to make sure that there was some staffing where you needed more staffing with patients and more time with patients. Is that true, Audrey? Shake your head if that's true. Okay, good. We can't read your lips and we can't hear you. But I think what I want to say is that we do hear you in terms of the staffing issues and trying to make things right by the nursing homes. We are starting to move a lot of legislation out, and we will continue to do that. I know that it's been very hard, and we thank you for the work that you've done and all of your colleagues in this very, very difficult time. We know you're on the front line, and we appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do. I am sorry, we cannot hear you. And we can't read your lips very well. So I believe that was the last person to testify.
Yes.
So I really do appreciate the fact that so many people shared their opinions on this budget. We hear you loud and clear. As I said, we will have another budget hearing. What day is that, Senator Mayor? I know it's next week. Unmute, Shelley.
It is the 16th at 5 p.m.
Okay.
We already do have a full list, but if someone wants to try to get on, they should certainly send the email and we'll do our best to accommodate.
We'll do our best. I think we try and keep everyone on time so that if you know, someone, as what happened just now, if somebody who couldn't get on earlier is able to get on later, or you know, something happens, we at least have enough opportunity to correct anything that might be an issue so that we can hear you loud and clear. So I want to thank all of my colleagues. Again, I think everybody has commended the Westchester delegation, but I will say that I am just so proud of this amazing group of people who spend, you know, untold time and energy trying to get it right. And that's why we're spending so much time listening to you and to your input. So I thank you all for participating. And thank you for continuing to give us your ideas. Again, just because the forum is over doesn't mean we're not hearing you. You can always contact our offices to make sure we have any additional information or testimony that you'd like to give us. And until we meet again, thank you and stay well.
Thank you. Thank you all.